to Culture Bank's Game Changers. I'm Corey Hale, joined by the one and the only Dan Roberts. Hey, Dan.
Hello, what's up?
Well, nothing much, but hopefully you had a much better weekend than I did.
I mean, I'm just trying to get to Friday.
Oh, well, aren't we all?
Yes.
Okay, we are bringing you the most interesting companies and the bosses behind them that are truly changing the game.
And today we're talking all things money, including social capital and the best way to get loan amounts with the founder and CEO of Solo Funds. Then we have a founder and CEO of also BarleySober, which is the perfect way to keep your drink full at the bar. But first, we got to get started with the news that all entrepreneurs need to know this week.
And there is a lot of it. For example, if your company happens to find itself filing for Chapter 11, U.S. lawmakers are trying to make the process cheaper and a lot easier. They've proposed a new bill called the Small Business Reorganization Act for companies that file for protection with about $2.5 million or less in debt. Interestingly enough, though, the bill is going to cut costs in several ways, including eliminating half of the two-step process for judges to approve repayment plans, which is very important, especially because these small business owners don't have enough money for the drawn-out legal system.
Sure, yeah, and I think they're going to take the two-part system, cut it in half. That way you don't have to worry about the small business owner going to court 2, 3, 4, 5 times and spending so much money, particularly on attorneys who charge these huge fees. So I think it's very, very important for the small people who don't have all the extra money in the bank.
Yes, it is very important.
We know entrepreneurs are some of the busiest people around. I mean, they're hiring, they're building, they're doing it all. So the best way to grow your business when you are doing it all is to always make sure that your image is on top. A picture is truly worth 1,000 words, right? So before you do anything, make sure you're tapping into a photocentric campaign using social media. We have so many tools today between Facebook, Instagram. So find those ways that are easy lifts for your business to take a quick picture, post it on Instagram, use a marketing plan, and go there.
And it's also about being super duper cost effective, right?
Yes.
Because nowadays marketing campaigns, budgets, those run into the hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars. But there's a lot of ways for small business owners to really capitalize on all the free apps and platforms out there. And they just need to start where they're at.
Totally.
Coming up, we've got a surefire way to make sure your drink is never empty at the bar. So keep it right here. You're watching Culture Bank's Game Changers. Ever been at a crowded bar feeling like you're waiting forever to get the bartender's attention? Well, our next guest definitely has a way to make sure that you never have to turn down while you're out with your friends. Let's bring in Rohan Brown, the CEO of BarleySober. Hey, Rohan.
Hey, how you doing?
Excellent. Glad to see you could make it up from Philly.
Oh, anything for you, Corey.
Rohan, BarleySober.
Yes.
This is the company that is going to revolutionize the bar industry, not just here in the U.S., but globally. Tell us why.
Absolutely. So what we like to say is we're the Starbucks for bars. So just how Starbucks makes it very convenient to order a drink and earn points, we want to do that same thing, but for the nightlife space. Yeah, and we can see this being implemented in the U.S., Europe, especially in South America as well.
That's awesome. So one of the features of the app is it notifies the bartender when your drink is getting empty. How does that work?
So say you're amongst your friends, you're sitting at a table and you want to order another drink, but you don't want to deal with that crowd. So we want to make it very convenient to order the next drink. You order through your phone, the bartender makes it, notifies you when you're ready, and then you go to a designated spot at the bar, pick up your drink, and go about your business.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right, so what's in it then for the actual bar owners themselves? Like, how is it that they're able to capitalize more as opposed to just maybe signing up and spending money for this technology that they implement within their, I guess, broader restaurants and bars?
No problem. So if you think about any fast casual chain, such as your Moe's, Panera, they have their own app where they can reach outside of their venue in order to draw traffic in. We want to do the same thing for bars. So they'll have their own ecosystem on this platform, and you'll be able to push promotions to a particular demographic in order to bring more people in. So it's really a retention and marketing tool for the bar owner, and that's the benefit to them.
So cool. So how many bars do you have already participating, and how do you get business owners to sign on?
So we have about 5 that we're going to pilot in the Philadelphia area, but we do have a long list of about 100 or so that we potentially want to partner up with. We're strictly based in Philly right now, but we are moving to New York and Pittsburgh right after Philly.
Awesome.
All right, there we have it, BarleySober, the app that makes sure your drink is never empty. Thanks so much for joining us,
Absolutely.
Rohan.
Thanks,
Thanks,
for having
man.
me, Corey. Appreciate it.
Next up, the mobile lending exchange platform that's helping you put some coins in your pocket ASAP. You're watching Culture Bank's Game Changers.
Welcome back to Game Changers. Our next guest has a unique way of looking at credit worthiness for loans through an individual's social capital. Joining us now is Travis Holoway, CEO of Solo Funds. Welcome.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Doing great. Thanks so much for dropping by. So I've been reading a lot of cool things about your company, but tell us, who does it benefit more, the lender or the borrower?
Well, Solo is a marketplace, so it actually has to benefit both individuals, and I would like to think that that would be equally. From the lender perspective, lenders now have the ability to do two things. One, make money from helping others, but two, they can have the social impact that many people are currently looking to have in 2018 and forward. On the flip side of that, borrowers are now able to, this is the only platform where borrowers can now come to an institution and say how much money they need to borrow, when they can actually repay it back, what they need it for, and if they're willing to pay anything in addition to that. Try that at your local bank. It's just not going to work out in your favor. So, I would like to say that Solo is really beneficial for both sides.
All right, let's talk a little bit about social capital, just the idea of social capital. When I think about especially lending as it relates to minority communities, there's always been a lot of bias, discrimination in place, but this idea of social capital could really help to revolutionize that.
Absolutely. When we look at social capital, we're looking at alternative data that has historically not been ever, factored into, a credit application, in the past. So with that said, we're looking at things like, banking transactional history, but who people are socially. Social data and social capital has been used in emerging markets overseas for many years where traditional FICO scores don't exist. But that's never really been proven here, in this country. So with that said, overall behavioral data and a lot of different data points that, your traditional bank just doesn't have, we are now able to take that data, create a score for you, and then basically say that you're more creditworthy than you're currently perceived by traditional institutions.
With so many tools in the financial industries, how were you able to figure out this gap in the industry?
So this gap was really created because, I found this gap because individuals who I already knew were asking me for money. $100 here, $200 here.
You're
friends
like, whoa,
and family.
whoa.
Yeah, it's I wore a suit and carried a briefcase. My background was in finance, and because I was doing those things, people assumed that I had money to lend. And the reality is I didn't want to lend them money every time they asked, and I was looking for a solution to send them to. And once I couldn't find it, I realized that there was a major gap in this country. And to be honest, I thought that this was a minority gap, black and brown people who needed access to this type of capital. But 78% of the country is living paycheck to paycheck, and 47% of the country couldn't solve just a $400 cash need without borrowing from someone else or selling a personal asset. So this is really an inclusive product for all.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. When you think about banks, though, as being the primary sort of way that most countries run their financial institutions through, can social capital as a concept, can that sort of replace the traditional practices of going into credit checks, that sort of stuff that really isn't set up necessarily to help people unless you're kind of already coming from the right background?
Yeah, true. I think that going forward, social data is going to be more important than the traditional financial data, because we're running out of traditional financial data when you look at millennials and the underbanked. They're not buying homes the way that they have in prior generations, not buying cars. We're sharing scooters, we're sharing bikes in the street, we're sharing Airbnb, we're sharing everything. And with that said, if you're a 30-year-old male who's grown up in New York City, never bought a house, never bought a car, and don't use credit cards, when you actually do move to, let's say you move to, middle America somewhere, let's just say you move to Nebraska, now you need a car. You walk into that financial institution, they want you to fit in this mold, and we're growing out of the mold that they've traditionally set, and this social data is what will be needed in the future.
Well, this was incredibly insightful.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Travis Holoway from Solo Funds, for joining us. We really appreciate all the knowledge.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the time.
All right, guys, and stick with us on Game Changers, where we are getting ready to break down how you can easily take your startup from an idea and make it a complete reality. Stick with us on Game Changers.
Welcome back to Culture Bank's Game Changers. There are no limits to who can become the next great entrepreneur. You don't need a ton of money in the bank, a lot of corporate experience, or anything like that if you want to be the next big thing. Start by evaluating yourself and seeing where your passion truly lies.
All right, and once you've identified your passion, which is first and foremost, what you want to do is start doing your market research. You want to do this MVP testing because you really need to check and see if there's anyone else doing the business that you're planning to create. But if not, Dan, there might be a very good reason why that's not happening, and you want to make sure that you're going to avoid any pitfalls getting started.
And you can start building your dream right now by getting an A-team in place. Whether that's a co-founder, a freelancer, or even a few employees, right now is the time to start creating your company, the company of the future though.
Yes, very, very important. All right, everyone, thanks so much for joining us on this episode of Culture Banks. I'm Corey Hale.
I'm Dan Roberts.
All right, guys, you can check out all of the savvy business news specifically for the culture at culturebanks.com. And thanks so much for soaking in these gems from Solo Fund and from BarleySober.
Yes, and catch next week's Game Changers episode, which is always available on Roku, Apple TV, and Verizon. Until then, keep building for the culture.
See ya.